Here's Teresa, right in time. Oh, Dr. Pay.
Not that you're cutting. I'll remember that. Punctuality.
Hi.
Traffic was crazy today.
They said we didn't have another new person tonight, did
Are we ready?
I am.
Okay. I call this meeting of the Parks and Rec Commission of Brisbane on October 11th at 6:30. I call it to order. Roll call, please.
Jimenez here.
Boligoff here.
Fryer here.
Reno present.
David Needham here.
Marmion present.
Next item up is adoption of the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda as read.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of minutes. I did have one little tiny thing here that I wanted to just make sure whether we want to leave this in or not, and that is that under Commissioners present it says Lentz absent, and she had at that point already resigned. Later on in the minutes it says I talk about
We're resigning.
her resigning, but should that be stricken?
I mean, it's something that I've never done before, so I just put her as absent, and then as you go on in the minutes, you explain that she is no longer there. So I can take it out if we need to. Yeah, exactly.
What makes your job easiest? Leave it? Yes?
Yeah, just leave it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other changes?
No.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of October 11th.
I'll second them.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Citizens communications, we have no citizens communications tonight, so on to old business, review of work plan updates with the attachment.
So I thought with new commissioners coming on board and in reference to the conversation about CIP and use of funds from the 280 South Hill property, that it would be good time to revisit the Park and Rec Commission's work plan because we haven't brought it back in quite some time, and we've certainly accomplished some of the things on the list. So I thought I would go ahead and refresh it and bring it back to you guys to kind of look at, and then spark the conversation more about CIP and use of funds going forward. So I'll just briefly go through some of the highlights of what's been accomplished over the past year and what has been noted in the work plan accordingly. So the first is trail improvements. One of the things we had on the list was to create a map of accessible trails and walkways for the public. That's actually been done as part of the Bike Pedestrian Trails Master Plan, so we checked that off the list. We're performing regular audits and need to be working with Public Works a little bit more directly regarding improvements and maintenance overall. That's kind of an ongoing thing. We had a conversation with the community through the needs assessment survey that we sent out regarding the Crocker Park Trail and paving it. And we did get some grant funding through OBAG and CCAG. So the city is working on moving that project forward, but still needing some additional funding. So that will come up as part of the budgetary and CIP conversation with City Council.
Excuse me, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Have we received that money from, what is it, OPAC?
It's OBAG.
OBAG.
I don't know for certain whether or not the city has received that grant funding, but I could inquire with Stuart to confirm whether or not it's been received.
Yeah, because I was just wondering if, you know, they okayed it, but they haven't released the funds as of yet.
Right, and there's still a difference in the overall cost of the project between what we're getting from grant funding and then what the full cost of the project will cost.
Okay.
May I ask a silly question? Sure. What does OBAG stand for?
It is it's actually in the bike head.
I apologize. I'll look it up.
I don't want to misquote, but it's Bay Area. I'll find out. I don't want to misquote it. I can't see
And what's the difference between the amount of money that was awarded in that grant and what is anticipated that the cost would be?
So their board voted to fund the project for $885,000, and the estimated cost of the project is about $1 million.
Okay.
So that's kind of the noteworthy updates to the trail improvements goal on the work plan. The next one was community space for recreation, and most of the updates here were in reference to the needs assessment survey that we sent out to the community, asking about their interests and desires in terms of recreation facilities and programming. And so we conducted that in April earlier this year, and we're still kind of working off of that as staff and at the subcommittee level to push some of those things forward. And then continuing our annual facility audits on park and rec facilities, and continuing our recommendations to City Council for any facility improvements. And that will again come up as part of our budget conversation in the spring. The next goal was innovation. And we had talked about organizing some new community events and considering a different variety each year within the city, and we did a couple of those this year with the new kite event at the marina, as well as the Star City Music Festival that was held in July. So we've kind of tested the water with new events in different locations and different structures, and I think overall they both went pretty well, and the community was receptive. So
Well, when did we have the kite? I
The-
missed that.
it was at the marina in June, the end of
yeah.
June.
Well, yeah, I was.
You were gone.
I missed it.
Next year.
Thank you.
Yeah. But it was successful, so we're looking at bringing it back for another year. But still continuing to consider other opportunities for new special events throughout the city. That was the bulk of the update there under innovation. And then some exciting updates to the work plan under teen services. We officially have a YAC that is formed. Yay! They actually met upstairs tonight, so it was really cute to kind of hear them talking about what they're working on. And
How many YAC members were there?
there were 3, I think, this evening. There might have been 4. They closed the door.
Altogether, they have 5, but I think
Yeah.
there's only 3 up there.
3 for this evening's meeting. But they're going to be putting on a winter dance up at Mission Blue coming up. We're talking about folding them into the Festival of Lights and maybe having them out there doing a craft with the kids. So they have some exciting projects in the works, and we're excited to have them kind of
Great.
champion it. So that's in process. We also tested having a teen area at Day in the Park. We've been partnering with the library to co-host teen events specifically at the pool. And then Ricardo has been working on refreshing the dance to kind of attract more participation, bringing in new ideas and concepts there, and it seems to be working pretty well.
Question.
Yes,
Was there a Halloween event at the library again this year?
not that I know of.
I don't recall hearing about
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah. And then lastly, we did offer a counselor and training program for young, middle schoolers, young high schoolers as part of our Club Rec summer camp. So we had that running this summer, and we'll continue again next summer. And the final goal was town connectivity. Some of this had to do with trails and improving the trail system between the Ridge and downtown Brisbane, central Brisbane. We worked with the local business community a little bit more this year, more specifically with regards to summer concert sponsorships. Jeff did more extensive outreach this year, and we got a lot more donations and sponsorships this year than we have in years past, so that was wonderful. Jimmy and Michael also worked a lot with local businesses for the Star City Music Festival and getting them engaged for that event as well. And then we've been increasing our connection with the marina. I mentioned the kite event that was in June. We've also been bringing our summer camps out there, and they've had tours of the marina and worked with our harbor master on learning about local bird species and getting to ride on the little boat in the marina. So we're trying to do more collaborative partnerships with the marina and get people out there and engaged and mindful that it's there and it's, it's a gem for the community to be using. So that's kind of all I had on commission work plan updates, unless I'm inadvertently forgetting something. But this is a living document, so we can update it as we go. And Kevin and I talked about possibly conducting a next in-service goal-setting workshop with the commission in the spring or earlier part of next year. The last time we had done it was 2 years ago. So we think it's good timing with new commissioners coming on board to kind of refresh and have the conversation about what are our goals for the coming years and what do we really want to prioritize.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? I did have one thing going back to community space for recreation. The fifth line down, after-school program modular, which is here says 25% complete. Is it my understanding that the modular has been approved by the city council? Or is that updated later on?
They've given direction to staff to move forward with creating a request for proposal for bids for the project, and then identifying the scope of work and what the estimated cost would be. We kind of threw out a number of $150,000 just based on where we think that might land, but they want to see the hard numbers once we can get bids from various companies, and then we'll bring it back to them for them to kind of give our final stamp of approval. But what our hope is that we can push the process quickly enough in order to have construction take place during the summer next year, so that we don't interrupt the school year and have an impact to Brisbane Elementary while construction is taking place. So the hope would be that we could have a new modular by next fall, but I don't want to overpromise.
Okay.
So that's what we're looking at.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, under old business, use of funds for property near 280 South Hill.
So there's a couple of attachments for this. The first in your packet is the CIP, and this is just truly a list that we've been working off of as a commission. And I think it was earlier this year we had you guys identify the top priorities, and so the top 4 have been numbered. Initially it was 5. However, the school district, one of the projects, which was installation of restroom for the Lippman Field area, that project is going to be done by the school district. And so it's been taken off of our list, which is why you only see 4 numbers now versus 5. So we thought it would be a good idea to bring this back in reference to the conversation about the 280 South Hill property, to kind of guide the commission's discussion around that. So the top 4 priorities identified by the commission earlier this year, the first was to replace the after-school modular on the BES campus. Next was electronic signboards, both at Mission Blue and the community park. Third was the all-weather volleyball and sport court, and this kind of came about from a conversation with the superintendent of the school district in exchange for their installation of the Lippman bathroom. They are asking the city to install an all-weather court on the Lippman campus.
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever even heard of that one.
We talked about it briefly when we talked about CIP earlier this year.
Okay.
So
I remember bocce ball. I don't remember volleyball.
yeah, it's like an all-sport court. So it would have it would be you could use it year-round and have various lines on it for different sports.
Okay.
And then the fourth identified priority was additional lighting at the dog park.
And can I also ask about electric signboards being the number 2 priority?
Mm-hmm.
I thought when we did the survey, I thought there was a lot of resistance in town to changing out to electric signboards.
It was probably 50-50, and I have the survey results if anybody wants to see them, but it was pretty split 50-50. There were people who felt very strongly against them and people who felt that it would be a good idea. So that could be something that we bring back to the commission at a later time to have more of a developed conversation around it. But I just left this from where the conversation was with the commission earlier in the spring.
Any other questions? This prioritization is something that we will come back and look at again when the new commission, when all new commissioners are on board and so on, this would be part of the process as we look at what our recommendations are going to be in the next budget cycle.
Correct.
That's correct. And it's here just right now for us to refer to as we talk about these funds for the 280 South Hill.
Correct.
Okay. And I did see that one of the things is Crocker Park Recreation Trail improvements, which has no price tag to it, to be determined, and that's a ways down the list, and that would be one of the things that we might look at applying those funds to. Things like electronic signboards or all-weather volleyball sport court or lighting, those things are not going to dovetail with the interests of open space and ecology as we go into that conversation. Is
Right.
That that makes sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. And do we know, you gave us a sheet that South Hill property sale has close to $300,000 in it. So
Correct.
that's the number that we are talking about.
Correct.
So just to bring David a bit up to speed, what we're talking about here is I am a liaison to a committee that will be formed with city council members. The composition is city council.
And city council will make the final determination, but
Who's on the committee?
it's a member of open space and ecology. We don't know who.
And myself.
Correct.
And that's just the two. It's just the two of us.
Yes.
Okay. So that will be the conversation on what our recommendation is on how to spend this funding. And as I would be the representative of Parks and Rec, this conversation is to kind of give me some direction on what I should take to the table. And previous conversation it says that, well, we have $300,000. Open space and ecology is going to have their interests as well. And what we want to try to do is come to the table with some ideas that will merge the interests of Parks and Rec and the interests of their goals. So that's what the conversation is about. Did we want to talk a little bit about the bicycle plan and pedestrian master plan?
Sure. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with this. It's a hefty document, and I saw it recently, and I think Lyle's probably seeing it for the first time, and he was our representative. So I don't want to get too deep into the details, but I think it's good to have some of this information to guide the conversation. So I'll just kind of give a higher level overview and pull out some key points if the commission thinks that might be helpful.
That would be helpful.
I just want to say this is a very nice document.
Yeah.
It's very
I second that. I was going to say the same thing.
really good.
It is nice.
Well
The
done.
consulting group Alta, they were really great to work with, and they put this final document together. So I think they did a pretty good job. The proposed projects and programs kind of begins on page 26, 27 of the document. And it highlights some of the areas that were identified by the city staff as well as commission representatives and community stakeholders that were attending these various meetings regarding the Bike Ped Trails Master Plan. So the first of recommended improvements includes enhancements to the bicycle network in town, and some of those major projects they noted as resurfacing of the Crocker Trail, as I mentioned, adding a system of bike lanes on Valley Drive, Old County Road, and Monarch, adding separated facilities for improved connection to the Caltrain station along Tunnel Avenue and Sierra Point, and improved marking of crossings by US 101 ramps and other locations. They also noted bicycle parking as an area for improvement. And then on page 31, pedestrian improvements, adding to Brisbane's existing stair network, improving wayfinding, adding sidewalks in several locations, and improving pedestrian crosswalks throughout town. And then there's quite a bit of content in here about wayfinding. In reference to prioritization of various projects, that starts on page 39. And what the consultants did was they separated the projects into priorities, whether they were identified by the stakeholders and the community groups as a high priority, low priority, long-term projects and such. A couple of high priority items were bike lanes and shared route markings on several streets, including Valley Drive, to connect existing lanes in the northern part of the city towards downtown, as well as several new or improved pedestrian crossings, especially around the Crocker Trail and Parkside neighborhoods. And then on page 40, it provides you an estimated cost of various projects. And then long-term projects were noted to include new sidewalks, separated bikeways or shared use paths, studying a new pedestrian connection on Guadalupe Canyon Parkway between Elderberry Lane and Old Ranch Trail, and then their corresponding estimated costs for those projects. And then lastly, on page 41, they talked about a final set of projects not identified as a high priority by the community, but would be relatively simple, easy to implement. And some of those noted were consolidating driveways at the Brisbane Village Shopping Center, which may happen as part of the Parkside specific plan, adding advanced stop bars on safe routes to school, adding bicycle parking in multiple locations, and improving currently lightly used street crossings for improved bicycle safety. So those were some of the projects identified as priorities through the Bike Ped Trails master planning process. And as far as funding goes, as I mentioned, the Crocker Park Trail would be mostly funded through the grant that was received, but for all of these projects they would have to be funded through various sources, because there's not a specific fund for them in the general fund for the city. And so city staff would seek out various sources of funding through grants or other assistance programs that are out there that would support such projects. And some of those are noted on pages 44 and 45. I know that was kind of a really quick
It was good.
synopsis of this very in-depth document. So
That was great to see it. Thoughts, commissioners?
I think it's very thorough.
Very, very thorough.
I really like the picture on 43 of the new bicycle path on tunnel going out to the marina.
yeah, so they created these two
That's
project
nice.
sheets on pages 42 and 43 for
the
like
Lagoon
the
Road.
repaving of
Yeah.
Crocker Trail and the Lagoon shared use path, which Lyle can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was quite a bit of conversation about that
There was.
in our meetings. So.
Nice, it's nice.
Mhm.
Well, this is put on or introduced to us at this meeting in terms of helping us to grapple with this use of funds for property near 280 South Hill. And I think I've talked about this before, and I'm probably going to talk about it again. I'm really excited about the partial funding of the paving of Crocker Trail. I think Crocker Trail represents a recreational facility that joins the two sections of Brisbane, the Ridge and Central Brisbane, together. And I'm also very interested in ways that we can add other projects to that to create some synergy. Up next we're going to talk about public art, and I will talk about the potential of public art along that avenue, making it a destination point for recreation. And so the third part of that is I'm wondering if there is a environmental dimension that could be also added to Crocker Trail that would be in keeping with the goals of open space and ecology, and also within our goals of creating a dynamic new recreational connector between the two sections of Brisbane. And I don't really know exactly what that might be. A restoration of what that valley was like at some point, some section of it. What would be their ideas? I think I would would, ask them, are there things along that trail that would be valuable? And another thing is, would the city council take this money, South Hill property sale, and take the $115,000 out of that to bridge the gap for this paving? Is that something that they would do? And so that's sort of my thoughts on this. And
The one thing about the open space, they do have the frog habitat down there, so that will be, probably looked at and protected.
well, that would be, if that's something that makes that trail more dynamic for people to go to, that would then be a way to spend this money, or some of this money. I don't know what the price tag of that would be, in a way that builds synergy between a couple of funding sources to make that a more dynamic facility. Other thoughts? Are there other thoughts of what we might? I mean, in our last meeting, we broached this subject a little bit, and some people talked about trailheads, maybe spending the money to develop trailheads or something like that, which doesn't mesh particularly with my idea, but there are some other ideas that we should be talking about.
Is the kind of safety element of the crossing part of that, or included in the paving?
That's
portion?
a good question.
Just
don't
as
know.
someone who uses the trail a lot, especially with my kids, it's always a look all around, make sure you're like literally careful before you go across that on the crossings, even in the particular place where the crosswalk is at, you actually can't see the traffic that's coming around the bend. So to pave it, I think will do a lot of great things to get people on it, but I just worry about then that being one of the big connection points, just how that was laid out and what things can be done to just improve that.
Yeah. That's a good point, David. And I know in this Brisbane Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan, as I looked through it, there was a fair amount of discussion about signage, but whether that's funded specifically, I don't know the answer to that. And
Right.
is that part of that $1 million price tag, or is that something else that has to be
I believe that would be in addition to,
in addition to?
yes,
But something that should certainly be
a company.
addressed straight away if we're going to make that a place that a lot of people go to.
Yeah.
I thought you mentioned that, Noreen. Did I not?
Well, it was talked about in the bike ped master plan,
Correct, yeah.
but
Okay.
it's not included in the $1 million price tag of resurfacing Crocker Park.
Right. Yeah, I think resurfacing.
As far as
is
I'm
just
aware.
Resurfacing that, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not something to take
Yeah.
to open space and ecology and say we want money for signage.
Yeah.
Or should I?
You could.
You should. I mean,
Yep.
again, it's all about the use of open space.
Yeah, the trail.
And this is a way to get people to use the open space. And it's one of
Feel safe.
theirs and our responsibilities about safety of pedestrians. Again, it's part of the master plan as well. So by all means, you should bring it up. Again, the proposal is about $1 million to resurface into Class 1 for the Crocker Trail. And the intent is to get people out and about for our purposes, for recreation and open space and sharing and like, yeah, I lost my thought there. Getting people out, they're going to explore. And by exploring, they're looking at the ecology, looking at what the habitats, the nature that's out there, that's hoping with their mission as well to get people
Engaged
out and
in the
about,
community.
engaged in the community and in open space and the ecology. So it's a win-win I can see for something like you say that's going to combine the ridge and downtown Brisbane together. Everyone's using it. More people are out. There is a lot of synergy there. So I would bring it up because resurfacing is a large step, but then people to use it, as David mentioned, more routinely is making sure they're safe. The first time someone doesn't feel safe on the trail, they'll stop using it, they'll tell someone, and then the trail doesn't get used as much.
Or even worse, should there be some unfortunate accident
yes,
because, well, I can work with that argument. So the only question for all of you, all of the commissioners, is do you deputize me to make an argument that this money should be used in some form or fashion for the ongoing development of this recreation facility, because it is going to happen, it is going to be repaved, and is that the argument I should take to them on behalf of Parks and Rec? Whether it is that, whether it's signage, or maybe this covers more than signage, maybe we get restoration of the frog habitat and signage. I don't know how much this buys, but the question is that the direction we want to go in terms of using this money, or is there some other place in our recreation facilities that we want to explore?
I think the trails are really important. I mean, I think that you should meet with open space and see what they think, but you should represent us, that this is what we want.
Okay. So we're all in agreement? Okay. All right.
One question on the trail outline too. I know that on the trail there's the little part that jets off at the entrance there of the dog park, or opposite the dog park. Is that included in the paving? Okay, just making sure. It wasn't called out like on the diagram. So.
Oh, it is?
And also, it would extend to and through the tunnel. Is that correct?
I'll
No.
have to confirm. I
think
don't.
That's where the isn't
Yeah.
that where the frog.
No, the frog's up before the.
Oh, I know where it is.
Way up before the tunnel. Yeah.
A little marshy area.
Yeah. Where is that? What page is that map on?
It's on page
Yeah.
42.
Yeah.
It talks about the Crocker Park resurfacing project.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it does not extend
It doesn't include the tunnel.
to the tunnel.
Yeah.
That's for another day.
Yeah.
That's when the Baylands gets
Yeah.
built, and we connect over to them, so you can
The tunnel
walk
is
over there to the beautiful parks we will have.
yes. Okay, are we?
Just to circle back, OBAG stands for One Bay Area Grant, and it's part of the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and there's a little blurb on it in the master plan on page 45.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business.
Before we
Oh,
move
yes,
on,
sorry.
I guess in also part of your argument, on page 42, it also talks about the projects a little more in regards of the materials used for the resurfacing, which, if you look at the one key word in there is organic. So things stick out to those in the environment or in open space and ecology in regards of ecology being protected there because
Right.
of the materials being used. So more justification for your argument.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
that looks good.
Okay. Moving on to new business. Are we ready to move on? We're done. Yes. I don't want to step on anybody's.
We can move on. Yes.
So, okay. Moving on to new business public art, moving forward. Did you want me to just take this on? Okay. For people out watching on TV, Sharon may be watching this, and also for David, I'll give sort of the whole review of this. I originally got on Parks and Rec Commission to explore the idea of public art ordinance and what the impact and value of that would be for Brisbane. We formed a subcommittee which was comprised of Karen Lentz, Bonnie, and myself, and we spent 2 years studying extensively other cities, their public arts programs, and so on. What public art means is that when new development comes in, 1%, there are some situations where it's 0.5%, depending on the project, but 1% goes towards public art. If it's a large project, the developer has the option of using that money to do public art on their own property. And if it is below a certain amount, or they also have the option of putting it into an in lieu of fund, which then the city can spend on public art projects as it sees fit. The ordinance was written by our subcommittee and then polished by the city lawyer, and it went through some vetting, and it was passed in October of 2014. There's a second part to public art, and that is implementation guidelines. And so then we reconvened and started on the implementation guidelines. Implementation guidelines are the method by which we determine what public art we're going to pursue. In the case of the In Lieu Fund, or also interact with the developer as they present their public art idea and say, yes, this is going to go, or no, let's rethink this. The implementation guidelines passed about, what, 3-4 months ago,
Yes.
I think? Finally, 3-4 months ago. In between this gap, some public art issues did come up. Most notably, the new library. The new library mandates a public art a component to it. And so, in the absence of having implementation guidelines, we put together an ad hoc committee, and we went through a process of determining a budget, putting out an RFP for which we got, I believe, 24 responses, narrowing it down to 4, and then selecting one, which is Michelle Gutlove, and so this $50,000 that's committed is for that project. Meanwhile, we have been accruing some money. It shows here $377,000, and that is because there have been a lot of small projects where buildings have been repurposed, and in that refurbished in the millions of dollars, and those funds have been put into the In Lieu Fund for Public Art. I do notice here missing there also has been $20,000 which has been allocated for the restoration of the mural that is on
The market.
on the market. So I'm not sure where that fits into it. But needless to say, we have some money in the Public Arts Fund to think about. And one of the ideas that I would like to explore is then using that money towards public art along the Crocker Trail. And the idea that I would put forward, although I think there's a lot of other discussions and people to be had, and people may have some better ideas. There are some very large warehouses spaces in the backs of those buildings face the Crocker Trail. They're huge canvases, just waiting to have some spectacular, splashy mural put on them. So that would be one idea that we could do about it, that we'd use for that. But meanwhile, I think that what we need to do moving forward is that we need to put this committee in place that will begin the discussions, begin the conversations of how we should spend this money, even as more projects come along and more money accrues. And that committee is made up of I'm going on memory here, so I hope I get this right. The 2 city council members who are the arts on the arts subcommittee, the 3 commissioners who are on the public arts subcommittee, and then 1 member of the community who is an artist at large, and 1 member of the community who is a businessman at large. Obviously, we've just had an election, and the 2 city council members who were on that arts on their arts subcommittee were Madison and Lori. Lori did not run, and so there will be an opening on the city council for that. And then Karen Lentz was also on our subcommittee, so there will be an opening on our subcommittee for that. So we need to wait till the dust settles.
Yeah.
All new commissioners are appointed, and then. But then I would like to push forward. So we're talking February, March.
Yes.
To
So
do that.
I've been told that the city council will make their subcommittee adjustments and reassignments in January. So.
And we would do our reorg about February?
Yes.
So immediately following that, what do we need to do to make that?
We'll
make
just
that
keep
happen?
it on our radar, but at this point, city council will make their subcommittee assignments and then make the appointments of the 2 additional, the business community member and the other.
And is that a
new
process?
resident.
How will the applications come in for that process?
I believe, people will apply through the city clerk, and then the applications will be received, and city council will make the appointments of those 2 individuals.
So there would be a notice
Yes.
that goes out to the community.
Yes.
And then at that point, that group would match up with our subcommittee, and we
Yes.
would have our first meeting. I do want to make sure that we move in that direction. I know there are some ideas afoot about how to spend this money now that this money is out there, and people can get some ideas about what we should do with it. And I don't, and regardless of the validity or whatever of those ideas, I do want it to happen in the context of this newly formed committee. We're all a little neophytes at this whole idea of public art, and public art can be quite complicated in terms of what is and what isn't, and what's the best value, and
how
so
many
on.
years have we worked on it?
And how many years have we worked on it? So I'm a little overprotective of this process because I want to do it right, and I think that any ideas that are coming forward from the community right now would be good, first discussions for this new committee to go through as we, because I would be on that, try to learn, what is and what isn't public art, and how do we want to prioritize it, and how do we want to move forward, and what's the best way to spend the money as it accrues. Is that?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty thorough, right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Any thoughts, questions?
My question, I guess, is around the use of the funds. Is it solely to create art, or is it potentially could be used to create artists? And what I mean by that is funding art classes or things like that for the community that would spawn art versus just having art created and people to look at. So.
Right, and the answer is it would not be appropriate for art classes and things like that. It really is about putting artworks that are integral into development as it comes along, and that's why I think it's actually a really good match for Crocker Trail, because we were trying to develop Crocker Trail as a recreational facility, and to as we develop those ideas to add that to the mix. I think it's a good thing to do with it. When we were first looking at it, we discussed other things like, if we have this public arts fund, can it be used for performance, for example? Because I do live at Mission Blue. Boy, I'd love to have an ongoing source, but that's really not what public art is. Public art is really about commissioning artists to work in an integrated way as the city deals with the inevitable development that cities deal with.
Thank you.
Can it be used to purchase art supplies and have a community event that ultimately produces a lasting public art piece?
That is a very good question, and I would say maybe under certain circumstances that might. We would take that further. Let's say, for example, and now we're getting into what a conversation might look at on this new committee. Let's say, for example, we do decide that we want to paint a big mural on the side of one of those buildings, and let's say we want to hire an artist to oversee amateurs to do it, and then we pay for those supplies. So I would see that as being actually maybe dynamic, a dynamic use of it. So I would say maybe.
I bring it up just in context of wanting, I think, anchoring off of the trail, which I think is a great idea, of further getting people actually engaged and involved in it at a personal level with families, kids, etc. Might then actually further the use of wanting to go back and see it. Hey, bring it up just in the context of the skate park and other things where there's been opportunity to just get your nameplate on something, even though that's not art clearly, but families, kids always like to go back to see their stuff. So in a way of figuring out how to maybe.
Yeah, I would say though that the implementation guidelines refer specifically to a professional artist being involved.
Oh yeah.
So in that
really
what the way I would move that forward is say that could be a really, and there may be, and I'm sure there are professional artists out there for whom that is exactly the kind of thing they do, and that would be a really, really interesting idea, and be part of the mandate to make public art integrated, an integral part of the community. That would add a dimension to it that would be a pretty exciting thing to explore, I would think.
Through the chair, if I could just add, to kind of get that to follow the implementation guidelines, it would seem to me that the first thing to do would be to have this project and then hire the artist, and then just kind of have all the cost go through the artist, meaning the supplies and everything,
Probably.
rather than bringing it from,
Yeah.
let's
And,
get
and,
the
and,
supplies and
fact,
move it in.
in fact, the way it would work, there's actually a second committee. So this first committee, which we're about to form, would say, this is what we want to do. Now there's going to be a selection process for who that artist is.
Right.
This is just a case in point. And that would actually go to a second committee that would do, the city would put an RFP out saying, here's the parameters of what we're looking for. We would get proposals back, and it would be that second committee that actually chooses the artist, in the same way that our ad hoc committee
Right.
chose the artist for the installation at the public library.
Yeah.
So yes, you're right, it might be folded into that, and it would make it simpler.
Yeah.
Anything else on?
I have one thing. Maybe with a little bit of your public art fund, we could relocate the train sculpture that years ago it was brought up about putting it out there on Crocker Park at that one bend. On the far end, the northeast ridge is up here. It's before you do that crossover to the street. There's a nice meadow area there, and the old train used to go through there. I think the train tracks are still there, but we have an old historical train that was a climbing structure that was down at, it was called Kids and Things, and then they turned it over to Silver Spot, and they removed that feature, and we're going to throw it away, but I got it saved, and we couldn't put anything out there at that time, so that structure got put at the dog park and saved. And I've always thought that would be a great place out there on Crocker when you come around and you'd just see that train. I don't know. It's
I
just
like that.
it's a nice piece of
I
sculpture.
I think that that we could. About a year ago, a little more than a year ago, when the election was happening, and I heard an article on KQED, and they were talking about, it was a time when everybody was talking about how terrible cities were, and they did an article all about cities that were really working, and what they said they all had in common. They went through San Antonio, and they went through smaller, mid-sized cities, and what they said they all had in common is they had a river walk. And they went on to say, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a walk that goes along the river. It means that it's a walkway that has things along it. And I was really struck by that. It's a connector. It's a walkway that connects community. And that started this whole idea about the Crocker Trail, that if the Crocker Trail is going to be paved, it's a bicycle and jogging and walking lane. And now, once you're out there jogging, there are all of these other things that make it more interesting and that draw more people to it. That's a successful component of communities. I was really struck by that, and that's kind of underlying what I'm really interested in as we talk about the synergy between these different funding sources. So, adding other ideas like that, the more like that we get critical mass of things like that out there. Yeah. We'd really have something, a recreational facility that would be really quite wonderful, I think.
Right.
Agreed.
I agree.
Anything else on that?
No.
Have we exhausted that topic? Okay, so moving on. Reports, Chairperson. So that's to me, and I wanted, first of all, to welcome David to our commission. I had the opportunity to first sit in on his interview and then sit in on his orientation, and got a chance to hear his thoughts and stuff. I'm really, really pleased that the City Council appointed you. I think you're a great addition to this commission, and particularly because you have kids and you're going to have that perspective of a parent with young kids. I think that's something that will really be a great addition. And also a shout out to Sharon if she's going to watch this later on. We miss you today, but we look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. I also wanted to welcome back Noreen.
Yes.
It's wonderful to have you back. Stuart did a fine job. He held the fort and he kept us all, well disciplined and all that. But it's welcome back. We're happy to have you, and
It's nice to be back.
and that's all I have for chairperson. Subcommittee meeting reports. We have a Day in the Park wrap up.
You want me to do? We met on Day in the Park, and we decided that on a whole it was very successful, and we were thinking about extending it till 5 o'clock, since so many families, the kids are in soccer and they don't get there in time to partake of the park. And since it's went so well that we're really anxious to extend it another 2 hours instead of stopping at 3 to go to 5. We used to go to 5, so it's not anything new. And then we'll have the food trucks again. They seem to be really popular. And the little contests and everything. I mean, the pieing contest was fun. You took pictures.
I love the pie eating contest.
It was that fun, the whole face. Oh. So I thought it was very successful. I was very proud of it. And the weather was perfect.
We got lots of really good feedback this year. A lot of people saying that, they went down and they stayed the whole day, really partook, really used the grass area. Yeah, that was great.
And I think the Derby was a success. They had a good turnout for that, and it seemed to have gone well. And little Tricia did those little tickets.
We didn't make enough bundles before, so we were.
So we're bundling real fast.
Yeah, it was fun.
So, on a whole, very successful.
How many tickets did you sell for the games?
Do you have that on the report?
Do you?
Do you have that on the report?
No, I don't. This is,
Gotcha.
that's all right.
I had written it down, but I don't have it with me. Yeah, it was pretty close to what we did last year. It was about $3,000, a little over $3,000 in tickets sales.
And most did the bundles.
Yeah. Most people did so we sold packs of 22 tickets for $20.
Mm-hmm.
And people were coming back 3 and 4 times for those. So apparently David were you there? Yeah.
Yes.
I was so busy. I don't remember anybody I saw. Here, bundle.
I came back.
So-
I was one of those.
He was one of the comeback people. So yeah, it went well. The games and all of the bouncy houses, and it went really
The
well.
trampoline, they were all.
And the face painting. I believe Madison Davis was doing the face painting, and I believe the face painting went really well because I ended up with all her tickets at the end of the day, and she did a lot of face painting.
Good.
Okay. So yeah.
So you'll keep those same events for next year too? Will
Yes.
you add anything new, you think?
Well, we may add different little games or something, you try to figure out which works best. Seems like that big one was real popular with the slide and all that. I don't know what that's called, but
And the trampoline, or
yeah.
is that what the 3? Okay.
I think one of the areas of feedback, I don't know if you're looking for any, might just be shade. It was such a beautiful
That
day.
that was brought up.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
And we had planned to have more shade out
Yeah.
there, and we ended up with just the 3 umbrellas.
Yeah.
But it's really discussed that we want to provide more shade for an eating area or for lounging on the grass.
Yeah.
And whether that's getting a really big tent or, getting umbrellas out there that you can go over and pay, $2 or $5 for an umbrella, and somebody will come out and spike it in the ground and set up your umbrella.
Yeah.
But we have been exploring it.
Oh, that's
So
great.
Good point, though.
I think that too will help people encourage them to stay longer.
Correct.
Yeah.
throughout the day.
Yeah.
That was one of the things.
Yeah.
I know years ago, we did have like a little tent area and had tables, so people
Right.
could sit down and eat their lunches. And I know that, I heard some comments on that. They
Right.
wished that there was some tables to
Yes.
sit down and eat.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that worked well when we did have tables.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it seems like that, so you're gonna eat, where you're gonna put your food, where you're
Yeah.
gonna sit.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
we
the
used to-
tables are a good idea, that we should do it next time.
Yeah,
Okay.
we used to have them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did.
And the other negative feedback was just, there's still, where I think by and large, the community at large really likes the trucks and the food options. There's still the group that feels that we shouldn't have them in competing with our community organizations. So, and part of that was a placement issue, which I think can be reworked next year. But I do think the community at large really does want the food trucks, and we just have to find a way to coexist because the community is for everyone. So, my point, my opinion.
And one other small thing, it's like really small, and I don't know if it was purposeful or not. It looked like the sprinklers had gone off either the night before or
Oh, the grass was wet.
it was really soggy.
That happened once before.
Yeah, so that might just be from a future planning
So
perspective.
let me speak to that, because the first year when Noreen came and we still had it, everything was on the grass. We were, it was a mud pit.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand how, and we had to, all the tables, everything was soaked and we had to wipe everything down. So last year, we made a special effort to tell them, don't turn it on, like almost for that whole week,
Yeah.
because even just a couple days and it's,
Still soggy.
still soggy. And we did tell them this year. So I wasn't on the grass too much, so I didn't recognize whether it was that way or not. But we had told them not to turn. I think they did turn it on the beginning of the week for like the first 2 days, and that'll do it. Just those 2 days. So
Is some of that just caused by dew?
This was.
no, this was
Where was this
Yeah,
at?
I
What
didn't
part
notice
of
it
the
anywhere. So
Yeah.
where
It
was
was in particular in kind of the shady area. So going back to the what shade there was where the parents association had the beer tent, and then
Oh.
where the food trucks were.
okay.
Because there was lots of
That area.
condensation right in there, because it was shadier. It was fairly wet and
And over the summer, there was some, they did have some sort of a leak out there where there was big puddles, and I believe they had that fixed, but I don't know how soon before Day in the Park it was fixed. So there might still have been some of that
I
residual
guess
left.
it was just a very small thing that I didn't
Okay.
know if it was
No, that's-
purposeful or not purposeful. So.
It's a big thing. They shouldn't be watering.
Anything else on Day in the Park?
It's a great event.
Okay, moving on. Festival of Lights, events preparation.
Renee,
Oh.
do that?
Okay, let me see if I remember everything. Well, it's going to be just fabulous. Let me tell you. There's going to be 2 fabulous MCs at that night's presentation. And we're
Who would
going...
that be?
Oh, it's going to be a big surprise. Yes, there's going to be a special appearance by somebody. I'll let you know later. We're going to have the Brisbane Dance Workshop perform. We're going to have the Lippman Choir perform, and hopefully those students will also lead down the caroling into, they'll meet up at Mission Blue or Madhouse Coffee, and then carol on down and do the performance. Is Brisbane Dance Workshop performing first? Yes, performing.
No, the choir goes before
Okay,
Brisbane
the
Dance.
choir will go first, then the Brisbane Dance Workshop. Then, of course, we're going to have the Volunteer of the Year, a little recognition for her. We're going to have Santa Claus come and do the lights. As usual, we're going to have the snow globe again this year. We're going to have cider and chocolate and the cookies. And as Noreen said earlier, the yak, they might be doing something, because that's all going to be over at the gazebo area. And maybe the arts and crafts over there too. So it'll be a festive evening. And it starts at 5:30.
They start caroling down from Madhouse at about 5:45.
5:45.
Yep.
And come down to the park at 6. Yeah.
Good. Awesome.
So everybody
Those
come.
watching and listening, the date?
Sunday, December 3rd.
Thank you. Yes, the first Sunday of the month. Oh, and put your stars on your house and light them up.
Or else Renee
No,
will
really.
find you.
Really, that whole hill used to be lit up. We need to do it again. Get those stars up.
Right.
And if people don't have stars,
They could get them.
we can,
Yes.
they can be made for free and provided to you.
Yes. Brisbane,
It's
Where is that
Bob
advertised?
Wilson.
Bob Wilson's.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Where is that advertised?
It's on the Festival of Lights advertisement.
Okay.
So we put it in the City Star and in the activity guide and all of our Festival of Lights marketing. It tells people on there the number that they can call to get a star, and you can get various sizes. You can get, 3-foot star or 8-foot
Yes, so
star.
we want those stars lit at 5 p.m.
Yes. Yes.
I'm serious. I'm serious.
Okay, is that all for Festival of Lights? We hope to
Yes.
see you all there.
Yes.
Next, setting subcommittee meetings, and this might dovetail a little bit whether we're going to have a December meeting. It doesn't. Do we need to set any subcommittee meetings for the month of December?
Just if we want to do a Festival of Lights wrap-up
Uh-huh.
Oh,
after
Okay.
the event.
okay.
That's the only one that I can think of that would
Okay.
be for December.
We'll do that.
Did I hear you question whether we're having a commission meeting?
Yeah, we have in the past taken December off. I'm not sure.
I remember.
Commission calendar, I guess that comes under commission calendar.
Yeah.
We'll address it then.
Okay.
Did you want to set a date for that subcommittee meeting, the wrap-up?
Well,
Is that,
how about that week? Nope, we can't have. Well, yeah, we can. That Wednesday, or
The 6th?
does that sound good to you?
Sure.
Okay. Maybe we could do. Well, you're here till.
Till 8?
Yeah. Okay. Can we do it 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay. 5:30.
Is that okay for you, Bonnie?
Mm-hmm.
okay, moving on. Commissioners. Does any commissioners have any?
Yes, I do. I have something. You all have some pictures, and I had these taken. I did that Lions walk run out to the marina back, and I kind of took some pictures of some things that I saw that need to have some maintenance. There's some maintenance issues. And this first one on the left, there's these bushes. This is coming right off of the bridge on Tunnel, because people are walking. And it's kind of a safety issue, too. It really needs to be trimmed back because you can see, you kind of have to go over, and there's cars coming. So somebody could get hit. So I thought, that should be trimmed. The second picture is coming out of Brisbane, or coming into Brisbane, and actually that is our one walkway that we have from the bus stop going up.
Oh, yes.
And it really's been neglected for quite a while. You can see it's kind of a bad picture. The railing, needs to be painted, and I kind of saw that little retaining wall just looks like it's about ready to cave in and come down that hill. And that is that is one of our walkways that we put in. Yes?
I'm sorry, what was that first picture? Where was that at again?
The first picture is right there, coming off of the little bridge before you go to Lagoon.
You're going northbound over the bridge?
Yes.
Yeah.
Before you hit the Lagoon, the stop sign. So anyway, that's that one walkway that we did. I can't remember what year we did that walkway, but it just is neglected. The other one is the community park sign, and you can see it needs to be restained. It's weathered. Also, the second two pictures in the bottom picture with the birds, those are our signs that we have on the bridgeway. And you can kind of see them. They have a lot of bird poop on them. The one down on the right-hand corner, you can kind of see from the weather, it's cracked. Those aren't that old, but they've just really weathered. So I think that's something we need to look at.
How old are they?
On
Well,
the bridge.
They're on the bridge, but how old are
Yeah.
they?
Well, we did this. Well, we did this when Jim Skills was here.
Yeah,
so-
and people donated money
Yes.
to have a sign.
yeah, they
So
purchased.
7 acres.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah. But they're just, and they're nice signs. But you know, I don't know if anybody ever goes out there and cleans off.
Oh, I'm sure they don't.
Yeah, but they were nice. I remember we had a big committee to get these out there, so it's just nice to update them. People do stop and read them, so that was one thing. The other is the downtown Brisbane sign. Again, it needs to be refurbished. Some of the stuff, I think that's just the white paint behind there. I know the last person that did the community park and that was Sue Cochran, and that had to been over 5 years ago, maybe, or around 5 years ago. The bench on this bottom left is right below the picture of the walkway, and there was a bus stop there. I don't know if they still use that bus stop. It was bus stop, I think, was it say 24? But anyway, that bench is there, and you can see how that bench looks. So I think that should be taken care of. And the last picture down here is a bench in the community park. And they need to be restained. And probably those benches need to be repainted, the green part of it, the frames. But I just saw that stuff and I just thought, this is part of our recreation areas, our parks. So I'd like to see that that's taken care of before it gets any worse. So I wanted to bring that to our attention.
Good eye, Renee. Thanks.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for the photos too.
Yes, thank you, Noreen.
Yeah, so that we could see what, it helps to see what
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
A little bit off topic. Just seeing the pictures of the benches here, have we had any memorial requests come in?
So I actually received the first application today.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So we will bring that to the commission for review when we're ready to move it forward. Jeff and I are working on finalizing with the bench company and working with Public Works on installation and repairs and maintenance going forward. So that's kind of the next step.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Okay, moving on, program reports. Programs report.
Programs reports. So we have some enrichment classes we are starting to get for the after-school program, which a lot of the parents have been asking for. Right now, Steve has acquired, why do I not have it? Some art classes. We have one of them that is going through, there's a minimum of 8 children they need for each class to go and a maximum of 15. So the Creative Explorers art class is gonna go through, I believe we have a total of 15 kids in that one. The jewelry class, we only have a couple of signups, and then there's a textile and fiber arts class, and we have about 4 right now. So there's going to be starting the week of November 13th. It's Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. It's an hour, and each class is $90. So it is in addition to their monthly payments. So we're trying to get some more people to sign up for the other classes, so those will go. But at least we have the one going, and hopefully that will be something we can do going forward. Steve's also trying to get I guess he's in talks with somebody about getting someone to come in and do a STEM class. And then also we're looking, I think you said BDW? BDW would like to assist in doing an instrument making class, I guess. Yeah. So we have those things in the works right now. We're trying to get more interesting things up there, and I think it's going a lot better. We've had a lot better feedback from parents, and people are a lot happier.
So it's going to take place in the BES multipurpose room, or?
Where is it going to take place?
There's a classroom space at BES that they'll be using for the enrichment programs.
Okay.
Volleyball just recently ended, the girls' volleyball, so that is done now, and the flag football also just ended. Ricardo is ramping up now for basketball and baseball. Baseball? Yeah. And then we have registration for winter camps open. Winter camps are going to be on a daily basis this year, not a weekly. So you have the week of Christmas, 26, 27, 28, and 29, and then the week after New Year's, the 2nd through the 5th. You can sign up for the whole week, or you can just sign up by the day. So we're starting to get a few people starting to trickle in for that finally. So I think we'll be able to have each class. Right now we don't have any classes that have, or any days that have 0 kids in them. So as long as we have even a small number, we're going to go forward with those classes, because it's a winter camp, and people really need to have their kids in something while they're still working during the holidays. We have the winter spring activity guide coming out the first week of December. Resident registrations will be on December 12th, and non-resident registrations start on December 19th. And that will have, our basketball and our baseball, and anything coming up for the winter and the spring will be in there. So that's what I have for you.
And then just a couple other items of note. The downtown banners, the final set just went up today. It's the general City of Brisbane design, and that can be used throughout the year as we have dead times in between the other banner sets. So that one's up now and will stay up until after Thanksgiving, when the holiday banners will go up just in time for Festival of Lights. So that kind of rounds out the set. The annual CPRS conference is in March. I think you all received the booklet for the conference. If any of you are interested in going, please let me know. I know we'll have at least 2 staff people going, so we'll ask them to kind of bring back and report back to the rest of the team on what they learned. And lastly, just wanted to give you an update regarding commissioner terms. I know we have 3 Park and Rec commissioners that will have terms that are up in January. And so the information I've received from Ingrid, the city clerk, is that they will open a recruitment that will stay open through January 12th. Interviews will take place with city council in early February, and appointments would be made by mid to late February. So that's kind of the time frame that we'll be working with.
So when do the people apply?
I believe Ingrid's going to open the recruitment shortly.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it will remain open through January 12th.
So
I know I'm up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am as well. So if
Yeah.
our terms are up in January, we're still in the January meeting, but by February, there's a possibility we won't be.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I understand it to be.
Okay.
May I ask a question on the programs, Tricia? Do you know if Steve is looking into any kind of language programs for after-school enrichment?
I believe that was actually brought up at the last meeting. I believe Lori brought that up at the last meeting, talking about trying to get some of that. And I don't know if he's had a chance to look into that yet, but it has been brought up, so I'm sure it's on his radar. But I will let him know that it was brought up again. Are you looking at specific languages or just?
I think Spanish language is one that I think would be a good one. I'm sure there's others as well that could be included on the list. That's just
Yeah, and talking to Steve, I think part of and also when I was talking to Tony, part of the problem that we're having getting enrichment classes in there is there's not a lot of contractors that want to work after school is out. Most of them work during the school day, so when you try to contract somebody in after 2 or 3 o'clock, they're like, we don't do anything after that time. So that's where our problem is lying right now, but I believe that that's also on his radar, so.
And I'll just add that if I remember correctly, we tested the waters with this a couple years ago with Marcella doing a Spanish club as part of the after-school program, and she's our lead preschool teacher. But that if we're unable to secure a contractor and there's an interest and enough demand in having Spanish language club as part of the after-school program, then maybe that's something we approach Marcella about potentially doing and bringing something like that to fruition. So I will follow up with Steve and continue to work with him, knowing that there is a certain level of interest from the community on that.
Yeah, I would just add one thing. We had sent a recommendation to the City Council about increasing the fees for the after-school program, and that was discussed at the last City Council meeting.
Yes.
And that was approved.
Yes, 4-1.
4-1.
Yeah. No, at the 160 rate.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Not the 180.
At the 180.
Darn.
No, and the one who was opposed only wanted to raise it to 140. So I figure we've got the number just about right. We had one who wanted to raise it a little more, and then the City Council a little less, and so 160 is probably the sweet spot. Anything else for programs report? Okay, moving on. Commission matters, written communications.
I had several communications, and it has to deal with the dog park. By the way, the dog park looks great. The grass is looking really good. One little issue is they put in that fence in the back, and I'm talking towards the back side by, what is that, Park Avenue? Is it Park?
Park Lane.
Park Lane.
Yeah.
Park, on the back side of Park Lane. It's a black fence, and it's right at the end of the grass. But what had happened, when you come in off of, like you're coming off of Crocker Trail, and you come in the fence, there's supposed to be a gate there. They put the gate on this side. So now you have to walk over here to open the gate and then come back over, where the path was right there. They just switched it. It should have went to the other side. It's just I don't know what happened that they did that, but a lot of people down at the dog park were really, really upset with that. And one reason is that everything that's happened at that dog park, it's been like pulling teeth to get anything done. So I kind of feel like an advocate for them, because that's one of our parks that is used quite a bit, almost as much as the community park. And if anything is requested at the community park, we usually get it done right away. But this dog park, it's just awful sometimes how we've had to struggle and pull teeth to get things done.
Is it still closed?
Yes, it's still closed till I think December 12th, maybe. But can we get that fence fixed?
Was that an outside contractor, or was that work?
Probably.
I believe it was a contractor,
Yeah.
but I can follow up with our public.
And they do have the one gate that opens up, and I figured that was for the lawnmowers to come in and maintain the grass. And I just thought it was something with Public Works, but I don't know if Public Works even mows that. Maybe it's the people we contract out, the landscapers like we do for the park. So, you know, it would really make sense. Let's fix it right. Let's do right by the dog people and the people that do use that park. And they take care of that park most of the time. They maintain it themselves. They water all the plants. They're really, really proud of that park and keeping it. And we need to respect them for everything that they have done. And there are citizens too. They like that. And there's other people that come into Brisbane that use that and think that's a wonderful, wonderful park. So I'm asking, can we get that fence fixed properly?
I will follow up with Public Works.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're going to have another problem again. They're going to go like this, and they're going to go across the lawn, and then we might have a big walkway there again. The grass might die instead of keeping them on the trail. Yes, the dogs will run across that, but not so much as the footpath. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other citizens' communication? Then moving on to commission calendar.
There will be no meeting in December.
Oh.
Well,
The commission can decide.
we get to decide, but do we have enough on an agenda that we need to have a December meeting? Usually Decembers are, people kind of shut down and go away. How do people feel about that?
I'll be actually out of
Skip
the
it.
country
We
on-
don't have anything on the agenda.
And we have one commissioner who'll be out of the country on that date, two that'll be out of the country on that date. I'm fine with reconvening in the new year in January.
Right.
Do we need to have any thought about what that January agenda would be at this point, or is that something we can?
I mean, if you have specific ideas for the agenda
I don't
for
at the moment.
January, then we can make a note of them now. I was hoping to bring the yak in front of the commission so that they can introduce themselves
In January?
in January.
That would be great.
And then they can also give a report of how their winter dance went, and what they're working on. So I thought that would be a good idea for
That sounds wonderful.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Did we decide we were going to wait until all the new, once we have the shuffle, to do the subcommittee reorg? Yes?
I
So
think
that won't be
makes
until,
sense, although, you know, it's gonna, if the complete new commissioner isn't set until February.
March. It would be March.
Even. I don't know how to think about that. If we do have a new commissioner in the next cycle all the way into March, but meanwhile we've cut up the piece of the pie the way we like it, is that fair to the new commissioner? I don't know what to think.
well, we could maybe just think about that then. We can talk about it before the next meeting. I mean, I feel like it's a long time to wait to do that because
It is because we need to get up. We need to
because
get up
then
and running.
David and Sharon are what, they're not going to
Yeah.
be on any.
Yeah, and then we're not really having subcommittees doing their sorting out things.
Right. It's, I mean, it's,
Concerts in the Park should start up straight away after the first of the year and start at the beginning of that cycle. We've done a little bit of the groundwork for that.
yeah, we have.
So maybe that's something we can just think a little bit about.
Yeah, it might make sense to do it in January
Okay.
when we have everybody back to start the new year, and then if we need to reshuffle several months later, we can do so. But it makes me a little uneasy having that three-month minimum.
Yeah.
I mean, it could get dragged out even longer depending on city council's timeline and their availability. So I think maybe setting our subcommittee assignments in January, having that conversation, and then if we need to reshuffle a few months down the road, we can do that.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Okay, so that's settled. We are not meeting in December. Happy holidays to everybody. We've got a couple coming up, and we'll see you all at Festival of Lights. And this meeting is adjourned at 7:54.
It was a busy meeting. We did a lot.
Yeah.